Test. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not certain if the bell has rung or not. Do we have any confirmation out there if the 6 o'clock bell is through? Oh,
There's ringing in.
fantastic timing. Well, I will go ahead and call the regular town council meeting for August to order and turn it over to Councilman Bob Jackson for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Rigel. Rigel. Hey,
Hey there.
Rigel. I'm sorry, there's a lot of folks. How are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
Did you know you were being recognized tonight?
I did not know.
Well, welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is from Amy Evans, our Parks and Recreation Director. I hereby nominate Rigel Coker, the Parks and Recreation Marketing Events Coordinator, for the Mayor's Employee Spotlight. Since he has joined Parks and Rec, Rigel has done an amazing job. He has been going above and beyond his expected duties. He has increased our social media significantly by his quirky and fun videos. Rigel often comes in earlier, stays late to take pictures of activities and programs. He always has a positive attitude and is doing an amazing job all around. Rigel takes initiative and always gets the job done. I am proud to nominate Rigel Coker for the Mayor's Employee Spotlight.
I would like to add a few words, but if you have not been following our Parks and Rec page, you are missing out. He is bringing a lot of energy and hopefully attracting more folks to get involved with our parks program, which is first class and getting better every single day. So we thank you for what you do
Thank you
for
very
the
much.
town clerk.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you. Right.
Next, we have a resolution honoring Murphy Romanak.
Well. Come on. Come on over.
Whereas on a recent day on Smythe Drive in Newington Plantation, an emergency situation unfolded when smoke began emanating from a neighbor's garage. And whereas 8-year-old Murphy Romanak, a vigilant and courageous young resident, detected the smell of smoke and immediately alerted her mother. And whereas upon being informed by Murphy, her mother Paige observed smoke coming from the neighbor's garage and without hesitation ran next door to ensure the safety of the occupants. And whereas thanks to Murphy's awareness and timely response, her mother was able to act swiftly, ensuring that the neighbors were alerted and evacuated, thereby preventing serious harm and damage. And whereas it is clear that without Murphy's sharp instincts and brave actions, the fire would have likely spread to the main house, resulting in far greater destruction and potential danger to life. Now therefore, Mayor Russ Hutchberry and the Somerville Town Council resolve to hereby honor Murphy Romanak for her extraordinary bravery, quick thinking, and heroic spirit, exemplifying the highest values of community, responsibility, and courage, especially remarkable for someone so young.
I just want to add a few quick words. Number one, isn't it great that this recognition happened with a packed house? It's not always packed in here. So this was fantastic. This has to be the best standing ovation yet. So congratulations. Yes, ma'am. Oh.
Thank you. We have a house.
Amen. I have a special coin for from the mayor's office. I hope you keep that, but I want to thank you for being a good neighbor and a good citizen. The best part of Somerville are our people, and people like you watching out for our neighbors is why we're so special. So thank you. Keep up the good work. I have one for you as well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Yes, ma'am.
per section 2-106 of the town's code of ordinances, I motion to alter the order of business to immediately consider item 9B of the agenda tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to reorder the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, I do see that we have a crowd of folks. I just want to acknowledge that item 9B is a very important one for our community. If you were here to speak in favor of item 9B, please raise your hand. Okay, if you were here to speak in opposition of 9B, please raise your hand. Okay, council members, since we are foregoing any more public input on this, are you comfortable with moving forward? I just want to say that before we vote. And if we are, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The orders are changed.
Mr. Mayor, I move to deny second and final reading of the ordinance to annex TMS 144-00-00082 located at Loudon Drive in King Charles.
Second.
All right, a motion and a lot of seconds. Any discussion here? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. That is denied. Go home. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll give you an opportunity if you wish to depart. And we'll continue with the business. Yes.
Wow.
$20 on the way out. Line up.
That's right.
Think we just unified that. No, that's not. I got a lot down to you, man.
All right, it sounds like we can get back to business. Madam Clerk, you can go ahead and proceed.
Okay, next is approval of minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I would move for approval of the minutes of our town council meeting July 10th and our standing committee meetings August 11th.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve items A and B. Any discussion?
Mayor, I would like to recuse myself from the standing committee meeting minutes since I was not present.
Yes, ma'am. Acknowledged. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Next, we have a presentation from Wyatt Stitley with the Berkeley Charleston Dorchester Council of Governments.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wyatt Staley. I'm a regional planner at the BCD COG. Thank you. I have been working with Jesse and the rest of the planning department on updating the town's comprehensive plan. So we're using tonight, and then we'll go to planning commission on Monday to kind of do a kickoff meeting, introduce you to the project, look at the scope, the schedule, and kind of what we're actually doing a little bit. And then we'll also do a brief overview of, kind of what the land use zoning aspect of this is. So this meeting, I'm hoping this can be kind of broken down into two different sections. One being the introduction to the project, the other being the discussion with the land use and zoning. So in between, I'll kind of stop and ask for some questions, and then obviously at the very end. So just make sure you have an opportunity to speak before I, go into the rants that I'm going to get into. Tonight we're going to talk about the intro, the scope, the schedule. You can see the schedule on the right. We're in the light green right now, the project kickoff meeting. We're going to go over the purpose and the components of the comprehensive plan, the existing conditions. Then we'll get into the land use and zoning discussion, and then we'll go into the next steps. So you can see this is the tentative plan, the tentative schedule. So we're planning on 2 fall open house meetings. Then we'll go into the drafting phase of this project. We'll do 2 spring open house meetings, and then the final review and adoption later in the spring. This is about a year-long project. So we started, I believe, in July, and we intend to end in July. So the purpose of a comprehensive plan, it is a policy document that provides a vision for the community, and then it guides decisions and the implementation. As decision makers, you'll use this to help, make rezoning decisions, maybe annexation decisions. It can be implemented. The recommendations can be implemented through a capital improvement plan, which I understand is currently in the works, the town budget, the zoning ordinance, land development ordinance, and then any other ordinance that you have, like tree ordinance, floodplain ordinances, stuff like that. So you did in 2020, you did a 10-year review of the plan, a 10-year update. As per the state code, you now have to do a 5-year review. That's what we're doing right now. It's not a total overhaul of the comprehensive plan. It's just kind of checking in, doing that 5-year update in the middle of the year. You're on a good schedule. You have, you did the first one in 2020, 2025, 2030. Those are nice, even, good numbers right when the census is rolling out. So we want to make sure that we're sticking to this schedule as much as possible. So some of the components of a comprehensive plan, these are requirements that must be included, like a vision statement, the goals and objectives, an inventory of existing conditions. There are currently 10 of them. 9 elements, and then the priority investment, the needs assessment, and then the implementation plan. And as I mentioned, in 2020, there are 10 elements. In 2020, they added that 10th element being the resiliency element. Fortunately for Somerville, you already had a resiliency element. You kind of combined it with the natural resources, which we found a lot of municipalities did that already. Now the state says you have to have its own element. So we're just going to be updating that, expanding it to make sure that it's meeting the smell test, making sure that it has the stuff that the state actually wants it to have and requires it. So the highlighted components will be what we're going to be focusing on for this 5-year review. So the goals and objectives, right? We're going to be looking at those, seeing, are they still applicable? Do we need to reprioritize anything? We're going to look through the inventory of existing conditions, those 9 elements, and then we'll go through the implementation and priority investments to see if we need to, like I said, reprioritize anything. We'll look at the future land use map and all that. This 5-year review will have a particular focus on future land use planning and land use, which is why we'll be having that later discussion tonight. And it will be a major component of the implementation plan. So public engagement, as I mentioned, we will have 2 rounds of open house meetings, 2 in the fall and then 2 in the spring. We meaning the BCD COG staff, will be periodically checking in either with Planning Commission or Town Council. And we'll be constantly talking with the planning department, with the town administrator, to make sure that we are all on the same page internally. So that way, when we come to present, we're all like, all right, let's keep moving forward. And then per state code, we'll have a public hearing at the very end to adopt the plan. And again, that's scheduled for hopefully spring 2026. So the existing conditions, I mentioned there are 9 elements. They include population, housing, economic development, community facilities, transportation, cultural resources, natural resources, resiliency, and the land use. The 2020 plan focused a lot on ideas and concepts and best practices for each of those elements. We proposed for this 5-year review to look at more of the data behind those elements. And so that's what we agreed on with the planning department. And that's kind of the direction we're taking. So a lot of those concepts, they don't change. It's more, or they're still ongoing, or they're, the best practices are still, relevant. So we wanted to focus on the data that does change, right? The population of Somerville in 2020 is very different than 2025. So we want to make sure that we're doing that in the 5-year review. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at some of the data. We began to research the demographics, socioeconomic trends, some of the transportation related trends. So between 2010 and 2025, Somerville's had about 10,000 more residents, 5,000 households, and 3,000 families. The median age has increased by 5 years, which is a little bit higher than normal. 34% now identify with a minority group. And then the median household income increased by 48%. And again, this is in a 15-year period. So as we look at comparing the 2020 to 2025, those numbers might change a little bit. So socioeconomic trends, we have in Somerville 9,000 more employed residents. The participation rate increased from about 66% in 2010 up to 68%. And then the mean travel time to work increased by about 3 minutes. So now in 2023, or back in 2023, it was about 30 minutes. It was about 27 in 2010. And you can see the commuter flow. The dark green is showing people who, I got to make sure I'm saying this right, people who live in the area, who work in the area but live outside. They're commuting in to Somerville for work. The kind of middle area are the people who live and work in town. And then the light green are the people who live in Somerville but commute elsewhere. So we want to show that commuter flow, which can be obviously a big component for traffic congestion, transportation policies. Because this is the 5-year review, and we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the data side, we're doing a few initial, analyses. We're doing an employment shift share analysis, which looks at the employment gains or maybe decreases by economic industry. We're going to do an industry location quotient, which shows the competitiveness of each industry within the town compared to like the region, compared to the state. And then we're also going to look at the social vulnerability index, which is what you see on the screen. That is produced by the CDC, I believe. And that shows the kind of the resiliency element of the community based on the social components like housing, transportation, minority groups, and other economic and socioeconomic concerns. So before I move into this, are there any questions on the actual components, the process of the comprehensive plan?
Just a question about the map you had on the previous slide. Is that available online anywhere, like in a larger version, where you can see a greater area?
Yeah, so that link that I provided on the bottom of that is a link directly to that website.
Okay, all right.
And that, again, I believe is produced by the CDC, or I don't know if the website's the CDC, but that is for the entire country.
Okay.
So, and this is showing by census tract group. So obviously, if you want to show it by, I think it's census tract, county, and zip code are the 3 levels that you can look at this information. And I can go a little bit into it. So the social vulnerability index takes 4 different themes, I guess that's what they call them, compiles them all into this one index. And you can look at each different theme specifically and be like, all right, housing, we're at the 20th percentile, but then maybe transportation, we're at the 90th. So you can break them down into those 4 themes to see if you're looking for specific information. And I think it has all that on their website, so you can easily find that. So
Thank you.
I have a question. Will you be looking at our old comprehensive plan and the new one and tracking changes or performance, however you want to, whatever you want to call that, from the old to the new?
yeah, great question. We absolutely look at the 2020 plan. We're going to be basing a lot of our information from the 2020 plan because it was so well done, right? This is just an update to that plan. However, we will not be providing track changes of the 20 plan. This is a totally separate update. It is supposed to work in conjunction with the 2020 plan. So a lot of like I said, the concepts, those ideas that are in the 2020 plan are still going to be relevant. We're going to be referencing them rather than just kind of copying and pasting them into a new document. If you would like to see some of the differences, we can talk with the planning commission, or I'm sorry, the planning department on how we go about that. But typically for the 5-year reviews, doing the track changes can be very difficult to read, difficult to understand. We try to steer away from doing that because we've done it in the past, and it gets messy with all the paragraph breaks and pictures and, but like I said, if there's anything specific that you want to see updated, please let us know and we can be like, all right, here's this section that you want to see. This is what we changed. Maybe this is what we added. And we can work with you with that and the planning department. So does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. So we were discussing with what this presentation was going to look like with the planning department. Jessie mentioned that she would like for us to kind of go into land use versus zoning for at both meetings, town council and planning commission, since this is going to be a major focus of this update. So that's what we're going to be focusing on for the rest of the presentation, is just this distinction between land use and zoning, how they relate to one another, how one influences the other and all that. So land use are how we use the land, right? So it can be residential, it can be single family residential, it could be a gas station or just general commercial. The graphic that you see on the screen is just an example of how we broke this down to kind of help illustrate what we're going to be talking through. So a land use is obviously a single category, right? It is single family residential. That is a land use. Obviously, you could break it down into much deeper things, and there are some places to do that. But generally, most communities group them into, say, residential, maybe low density residential, commercial, industrial, conservation. So those are land use categories. The future land use is part of the comprehensive planning process. So we call it the FLUME. The future land use map takes those land use categories, and we try to project what the vision of the community is onto a map, right? We talk about all these ideas, we talk about the goals, the objectives, but they need somewhere to go. And that's what the future land use map is intended to do, is to take those ideas and actually put them on paper for where they should be implemented. And whether that the implementation, like I said, could be the zoning ordinance, could be through the town, the CIP, through the town budget. So the future land use map should be focused on the compatibility of land uses. It should be focused on the character of that area. Back in, let's see, the 1900s, I'll say, I think 1990s, when the state passed the Comprehensive Planning Act, in order to, if you had zoning, you had to have a comprehensive plan. It was pretty common practice that the future land use map of those comprehensive plans became the zoning map. Nowadays, we're trying to steer away from that model and not do it parcel by parcel, but by doing it by area, these character areas or special areas, whether it be a commercial corridor, whether it be just an overall neighborhood. We're trying to go into like a more blob kind of give you guys more flexibility in enacting these policies rather than it being so Euclidean, right? If you do it by parcel, it can be very like, well, that parcel says this or that parcel says that. yes or no, right? If we want to leave you with a little bit more flexibility, by doing these character areas, these blobs, but still allow you to, put in some of these policies and vision that you want. So you can see in the example, the land use, single family residential, the future land use could be traditional residential or it could be neighborhood mixed use, right? A single family land use could fit into either one of those future land use categories, which brings me to the zoning. So in contrast to the future land use map, zoning districts identify specific land uses that are permissible in each zoning district. The future land use kind of gives you like ideas, right? Oh, we want this to stay primarily residential. All right, well, the land use could be single family, duplexes, townhomes, stuff like that, lower density. Whereas the zoning will say specifically what you can and cannot do. So that's one key difference between the two. Because of how specific zoning is, a lot of the times there will be several zoning districts that can fall under one future land use category. So when we do this during the planning process, we'll we'll identify all the future land uses that you want. We'll look at some neighborhoods and be like, all right, we want to keep this, we want to have this a mixed use area, right? So we'll look at some land uses, we'll put that into the future land use map, the character, the idea, the vision of what this wants to be in the future. And then we'll kind of look at the zoning and be like, all right, our recommendation is we need to change this zoning district to allow for this use, or maybe not to allow this use. The zoning is supposed to enact the vision of the future land use. So you can see in the example, the single family is the land use, the future land use is the traditional residential, and then the zoning could be low residential 1, or I'm sorry, yes, but the zoning could be under 2 different future land uses. So the example on the right, the neighborhood mixed use is obviously supposed to be a mixed use corridor. It could have 2 different zonings, like low density residential or commercial 1, and a single family can be permitted in both districts, zoning districts. So the flume informs the future zoning updates. So a comprehensive plan is more of an advisory document, whereas the zoning ordinance is more regulatory. It has legal weight behind it. The comprehensive plan identifies the vision, and then the zoning ordinance enacts the vision, as I mentioned. So a lot of the future land use map is supposed to guide your decisions for something like rezoning, as I mentioned, like annexations. What should this use be permitted, allowed here? When you do these hearings, should it not? Is it consistent with your vision? That's what the comprehensive plan is for, whereas the zoning ordinance is how you enact that vision. So these are the 2 maps that we have so far. So on the left, you can see is the current 2020 future land use map. That is what we'll be updating during this comprehensive planning process. The right is the current zoning map for the town of Somerville. We pulled that from the town's website a few days ago, so it's hopefully as up to date as we can get it. We just want to kind of show you the comparison between the 2, so you can start to have an idea of, all right, what is this planning process going to look like? If we're going to be focusing a lot on the land uses, we'll be looking at obviously the current future land use and how are we going to update it. You can see on the left map, it looks very parcel by parcel, right? As I mentioned, we're going to try to, the idea is to do more of the blobs to give you more flexibility in how you enact that. So instead of having, just one line of commercial up the, I don't know what road that is, but you'll have, it will be more, more of a gradient. It will be more allowing for flexibility, whether it just be an overlay corridor or whatever. That's what we're aiming for the future land use map. And then comparing that obviously to zoning. All right, before I move on to the final parts, are there any questions on that? All right. Well, I'll be giving almost the same presentation to Planning Commission. We'll be expanding a little bit just because they're actually going to be the planning body, right? But this is more or less what we'll be working on for the next, I guess, 9, 10 months. So the next steps, we're going to continue gathering data and information on the existing conditions. So we'll be working closely with the planning department on getting that. We'll be, asking for the different department heads, be like, hey, are we missing any community facilities? Do you have water line, utility line infrastructure, GIS files, anything like that? We'll be looking at census data, the social vulnerability index, doing all that. We will be scheduling and facilitating 2 fall open houses, as I mentioned. We'll be coordinating with the planning department pretty closely on scheduling those. I think so far the date is there. The month is October we're shooting for, but that's things can change. And then we'll also be just working on the drafting of the plan, right? And we'll be doing that between now and probably February, getting, just drafting the plan, making sure it's including what we want. And then we'll, have it out for internal review and then obviously public review with you. So any final questions?
What's the cost of this?
That is a that is a great question. Would you
Jesse, $60,000. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I believe that's probably for a municipality that's this size, that's probably around it's probably about right, as it's what
And-
you'd expect.
And y'all have already approved that amount and the contract.
Yeah. I thought we had, I couldn't remember the amount. And that, we would do that again every 5 years. Is that right?
Typically the 5-year review is and I don't want to overstate. Typically the 5-year review is a little bit less than the full 10-year. So I don't know what the 2020 plan costs. I know that was done through a consultant. I know when we do projects when you go through the COG, I don't want to say it's a little bit less, but you don't, there's no private sector, extra money that you have to kind of put into. We're obviously through the BCD COG, we're a government agency just like you. And we try to, part of our role in the planning department is doing stuff like this for the towns. And that's pretty much all I do at the COG actually. So this is my 8th or 9th conference plan so far. So I've been doing these for a while, and we're going to try to make sure that, one, the plan gets done on time, and it has everything that you guys wanted to have in, and it has the vision that you want. So
Thank
any
you
other
so
questions?
All right, no other questions. Thank you so much. Appreciate
y'all.
your support.
Yep.
Moving on to public comment number 1 for items on the August 14th agenda. First, I have one to read into record from Sharon Barnes. I'm writing to oppose the rezoning of 401 South Magnolia Street from GR2 to GR5. This property directly borders my home at 405 South Magnolia Street, as well as the home of my lifelong neighbors Jeannie Thrower and Bubba Failer at 210 East 3rd South Street. All of us have lived in this neighborhood our entire lives. This is downtown Somerville, the historic district. I've attended every meeting regarding this matter and have heard my neighbors' pleas to be heard. So far, the Planning and Development Commission recommended a no on rezoning. The Board of Architectural Review recommended a no to rezoning. The Zoning Commission recommended a no on rezoning, and the Somerville Preservation Society also recommended a no vote. These boards exist to protect Somerville's zoning integrity, historic preservation, and overall planning vision, and they are united in opposing this change. The LLC that purchased 401 South Magnolia has already cleared nearly all vegetation from the lot, and I understand the Locklear House has been gutted. Rezoning to GR5 would allow more structures to be built much closer to my property line, as well as to Jeannie and Bubba's. In fairness to the surrounding residents, the council should require any potential project plans to be made public, including building placement and proximity to property lines. This is not too much to ask. Our town's Unified Development Ordinance was created to prevent overdevelopment and to preserve neighborhood scale. This rezoning request undermines both. The vote at last month's town council meeting was troubling and raised serious concerns. Mr. Halter clearly and firmly opposed the rezoning, warning against the kind of density issues seen in Mount Pleasant. Mr. Waring, who had previously voted no, unexpectedly changed his position to unsure. Ms. Wilson's interest in deed restrictions from the LLC is a slippery slope that should not be tolerated. The amendment to amend only created confusion for both the public and the council. Our neighborhood residents are strongly opposed to this rezoning. We expect the council to represent the will of the people, uphold the laws, and enforce the UDO you have sworn to protect, not prioritize the interests of developers. I urge you to protect the historic district and the character of downtown Somerville, listen to the residents and preservation professionals who live here, and keep Somerville the desired treasure community it is today. And I have one more to read into record. This is from Anne Marie Blaze. I am against the rezone request of TMS number 13711070001, located at 401 South Magnolia, owned by Camellia Cottage SC LLC from GR2 to GR5. Allowing this type of zone change in the historic district would open the floodgates to all other developers in our neighborhood looking to change zoning on future lots to maximize their profits. Please keep the historic district as is and vote no. Next, Matt Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the rezoning in the historic district. 30-odd years ago, my wife and I were returning from vacation in Charleston, and we stopped in Somerville, and we were taken by the charm, the beauty, the neighborhood, and the history. And on those 5 hours back to Virginia, we talked about how great it would be to have a home in Somerville. 10 years ago, we made that dream a reality, and we purchased a home in the historic district. Shortly after we moved in, we had a visitor, John Ball. He was 96 years old. He was actually born in our home. And for 3 hours, we sat on that porch and got an amazing history of our home, the neighborhood, and the town of Somerville. And it was after that I realized that we're just not homeowners, okay? We are caretakers of our historic home in this neighborhood. Look, I would say over the years, wise city officials have put in these strong zoning laws to really protect the integrity of the historic district. And I would say today, the historic district is one of the biggest assets that this town has. So look, I get very concerned because look, I know once we let that genie out of the bottle, we can't put it back in, okay? And we truly do risk fundamentally changing the look and everything that we love about that historic district. We really do. So look, let's do the right thing. As we heard, all of the history have all turned this down. So let's do the right thing tonight. Let's protect our neighborhood for the future generations who will discover this historic town, just like my wife and I did. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Shannon Sutton.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. Last month, I was up here and we talked about much the same that he did, that we discovered Somerville on a vacation, and we drove home talking about, wouldn't it be great if we could live here? And it turns out that we made that a reality too. And I talked about the stewardship of the house that we own. We own an 1850s house. And we think about it as who's going to live in it in the next 100 years. That's every decision we make about the place. That's what we're thinking about. I was this time going to talk a little bit more to just about the subdivision, and that Mr. Pye talked last time about using this idea, this HBU, this highest and best use of a property. And I knew immediately what he meant, because unlike last time I talked about the home, this time I'm going to talk about me. I spent my career sitting right there, being staff to councils, elected officials, to key stakeholders, planning projects in communities. I've done everything from a parking garage to pocket parks. And the one thing that I learned about that is if you only look at HBU, you lose the magic of a place. So I just want to briefly say, do we want to be a Key West in 25 years where the history is nothing but a party and no one lives in Key West anymore? Or do we want to be more like Nantucket? They struggle. It's not perfect. It's an imbalance, but they try to do right by the people who live there and by the tourists. I would much rather try for our history to be present in 25, 50 years, that we steward these homes, that we have this great city and environment. And I ended my career being president of a nonprofit that did revitalization projects in towns that had lost their magic and everyone moved away. And that's where I retired after serving 6 years as president of a nonprofit to rebuild, revitalize communities that no one lived in anymore. So I just really want the board to be thoughtful about, today is where you're making this decision about rezoning. It is the genie in the bottle. You can't go back. And it's a very important decision that you make tonight on this, because I've lived it. So thank you for your time. I also want to take a minute to thank my neighbors. It's been very uplifting meeting new people, but seeing old faces too, and having everybody present and come out and have a single voice on this. I appreciate my neighbors and I appreciate your service to the city. Thank you.
Tom Stanford.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me a chance to speak to you all today. As I see it, at the last meeting, the council appeared to misconstrue our concerns about the rezoning of 401 South Magnolia. The existence of short-term rentals is purely secondary and is, to a very large extent, a straw man. It's not really the issue. The real issue is setting a precedent that will ultimately change the nature of the neighborhood. The last rezoning in the area under consideration that we are aware of was over 60 years ago, well before the establishment of the historic district in the 1970s. I'm actually amazed that this issue has made it to a second hearing. The Planning Commission and the BAR both unanimously recommended the petition be denied. There was a petition circulated amongst the residents. I believe 71 people signed it against the change. So it's it's a large unified feeling that this is not a good idea. Anyway, the restrictions on the historic district are there precisely to prevent overdevelopment. All it takes is to waive them once and they're essentially become meaningless. If you approve this rezoning, then it will be used as the basis for every rezoning request to follow, and I assure you they will follow. I believe that most of the people in this room would agree that we want to prevent becoming like Mount Pleasant. Part of what keeps the flavor of the historic district from feeling like Mount Pleasant is the spacing of the homes, the lack of crowding. The setbacks for GR2 are much more gracious, and the lot coverage goes from 30% to 35% when you go to a GR5. So GR5 neighborhoods, therefore, will have 2.5 times more buildings per acre, ultimately, be closer together and have less green ground space. Will this change happen quickly? No, certainly not this year. 5 years, maybe. Almost certainly within 10 years, though. So please consider the long-term implications of your decision today. I'm pounding on this point on purpose. And should you agree to this rezoning, I can't believe someone else used the genie analogy. The genie's out of the bottle, and it's not going to be put back. And the historic district will slowly morph into Mount Pleasant West. So I urge you to send a strong message that the historic district rules are there for a reason so please vote to keep the zoning unchanged. Thank you for your time.
Laura Crosby.
Hello. Not that many years ago, nearly everyone living in Somerville knew everyone else, and we all ran into each other at the Piggly Wiggly. You didn't go to the store and not run into a friend or neighbor. Somerville has grown, but it's still a very nice community. And it's nice because citizens have bought houses, become friends with people in their neighborhoods, and have contributed to the goodwill of the community. The only thing that really hadn't changed is the historic district. And I do not understand why it is a continual battle to preserve it. If one councilwoman has her way, B&Bs can open up in all neighborhoods and be operated by property managements. An establishment within a neighborhood that can accommodate as many as 7 people and 7 vehicles will disrupt the continuity and closeness of neighborhoods. Neighbors will be replaced with strangers, as is the case at 115 South Magnolia, that employs a caretaker that I've never seen in 7 years. Who benefits? Property managers and investors who have no interest in living in the community. It is obvious that there are a lot of vocal people who oppose this. The icon of Somerville doesn't appear to be the pine tree or the azaleas. It seems to be the dollar sign. Why do we have to come here time and time again to oppose rezoning within our neighborhood? Why do we have so little support? Why doesn't council stop the commercial creep when the planning commission does its dead level best to do so? Residents in all neighborhoods in Somerville have rights. Could you please respect ours instead of capitulating to a few people who say that some people just want things their way? Thank you.
Peter Gorman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I want to speak in opposition to the proposed spot rezoning of 401 South Magnolia. You voted to approve first reading upon the request of Councilwoman Wilson that she had made a new offer from the buyer to place a restrictive deed covenant on the property that she said that opponents should consider. Well, we never received any offer from the owner, Mr. Pye. Therefore, logically, you should deny this request because it was conditioned upon us having an opportunity to negotiate with the buyer, and we've not had it. This offer was a diversionary and meaningless gesture to buy time that will never remove our opposition. Deed covenants are exercised strictly at the will of the property owner. If ignored or broken, private properties would have to sue to enforce it. The planning department agrees that the town would have no enforcement power in this situation. We have seen these last-minute motions made by Ms. Johnson Wilson before, with her 3 attempts to cure the illegal unit problems at the Magnolia B&B in our neighborhood. Opponents had no prior opportunity to respond. Springing these last-minute offers during council meetings is a form of bad faith negotiation that does not deserve your support or encouragement. Please deny any more offered tonight or in the future to give opponents an opportunity to negotiate with the builders and developers prior to first reading. This is standard practice in Charleston. Next, your proposed ordinance incorrectly says that the 401 lot size is 0.51 acres. I have a recent email from the owner to Councilwoman Johnson Wilson, where he says it is less than a half acre at 0.49 acres. Which is it? This makes a difference when the owner is trying to shoehorn in 2 ADUs into a tiny lot. The bigger issue here is the recent proliferation of ADUs in historic districts in the state and across the U.S. Speculators are buying up old houses and adding new short-term rentals. Income from these units can easily pay the mortgage for the main house. In South Carolina, several towns and areas have implemented bans or heavy restrictions on short-term rentals, particularly in residential neighborhoods. Some are only allowed in commercial districts. Others, like Charleston, are prohibited in certain historic districts. Kiowa, Hilton Head, and Seabrook Islands, Beaufort, Myrtle Beach, Fowler Beach, Isle of Palms, Charleston, and Charleston County have all imposed strict zoning restrictions and additional penalties for violations.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman.
Thank you.
Karen Healy.
Okay, let's play Beat the Clock. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity, and thank you to my fellow voters who are here to take part in this process. It is our right and responsibility. I'm asking you to deny the rezoning request for 401 South Magnolia. I have to say, nothing brings a neighborhood together like elected officials who seem enamored with revenue potential, a town hall which seems stymied to enforce the the UDO, and another LLC with development plans on South Magnolia at a home rated a number 2 notable, which was built, I think, in the 1840s. I'm also going to bring it up. The elephant in the room is the other LLC on the street. Magnolia Bed and Breakfast has been coasting for over a year on code violations, in part thanks to actions with some of the people here. Connecting the dots on South Magnolia, I'm sure you can see the concern about another commercial venture. I'm going to condense because people said so many wonderful things. I did want to focus on the historic district that I think it was the mid-70s became part of the historic register. So we as residents and voters are responsible to protect the variety of structures and spaces that comprise a historic district. This is a beautiful resource that's built in. The town didn't have to spend any money on it. No developers had to come in and build something that would encourage people to move here, to visit here. It was here, and we have to cherish it and take care of it. Got a minute. So that includes preventing another commercial enterprise from changing the current residential zoning of the property. This is a business venture, and there are plenty of properties in areas that are appropriately zoned for this kind of venture that are waiting for redevelopment. So thank you. Please deny this request.
Jim Healy.
Good evening. Just a few points on the rezoning of 401 Magnolia. At the second reading, I still oppose the rezoning. This would be a bad precedent. I won't refer to the genie again. She's very busy. Allowing others to continue to do spot rezoning throughout the historic district, changing the one core characteristic of the larger lots that make the historic district what it is today. Why many of us, as you heard, have moved to this historic district. The mention of the deed restriction at the end of the discussion at the last council meeting is also a bad precedent for all the same reasons that everyone has mentioned tonight. My third point is the process of going through this petition to rezone. At the last meeting, at the last council meeting, the first reading was approved to allow more time for research. What research? The Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny the rezoning. The Standing Committee voted unanimously to deny the rezoning. 70-some community members have signed a petition against the rezoning, and many of the people have come to speak at the last meeting and tonight. The the deed restriction does not change our objection to the rezoning. Did Mr. Pye formally present this deed restriction to the council? Did the District 2 council rep or Mr. Pye reach out to the district residents to discuss the situation? No, I don't believe not. Would the city be able to police the restrictions placed on properties? Today, the city, quite frankly, struggles to come up to keep up with the current zoning restrictions and code restrictions in the UDO, such as for short-term rentals and others who used the adage that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I ask you again tonight, please deny the rezoning of 401 South Magnolia. Thank you.
Tim Pye,
Good evening, council members. So everybody's been talking about 401 South Magnolia so far. I sent you quite a bit of information in an email trying to clarify and clear kind of what the intentions are and planned use and so forth. As you've heard tonight, there's a lot of people, they're against the accessory dwelling units. They don't want short-term rentals. I understand that. The only other, if we are not to develop that back part, and I get that they don't want that, it then is to divide that lot so another single family home can go there. There's never been anything sinister at play here. It's only ever been about to put another single family home there. The interesting point, everybody wants to talk about the integrity of downtown, house spacing and so forth. If you look at the tax map, the proposed new lot has the same width from the face of the street as pretty much every lot surrounding it, or for at least very comparable. What makes the lot sizes large on the east side is the fact that they're deep. When you look at that tax map, the streetscape, the width is pretty much the same on all those lots. So by subdividing this and putting a home on basically East 3rd South Street, yeah, it takes a minute for me to get that out, then it would fit in way more than having a couple of cottages and a garage in that backyard. This exercise has always been from the beginning with us trying to maintain the integrity of downtown. Again, we live here. We live right here on West Richardson. A lot of the people that talk about in the lot sizes, one of the folks that, or actually I think might even been a couple that came up, lived right across the street from this home, 0.31 acres. I provided that on the tax map I provided you. Mr. Gorman indicated that, 0.49. I provided the most recent survey and plat of that property. It's 0.51 acres. I don't have any idea what he's talking about, 0.49. So I guess, like I said, the choice is simple, at least from East 3rd Street. Do you want to look at 2 cottages and a garage? Those 2 cottages, there's no guarantee that they'd be used for short-term rentals. Somebody could put a elderly family member in there, use it as an in-law type suite. Somebody could use it for guest house, just to have open. Who knows what that future owner will do with that. But if it's a single family home to stay in keeping with the rest of the community, GR5 is the answer. I appreciate your time.
Jean Brislin,
Okay, I'm not going to talk about Main Street or Magnolia. First of all, thank you for your leadership on our neighborhood in Newington. That is I think the right decision, not a good fit. I had a whole kind of page written out and sent you all a letter last night about that. But I wanted to speak anyways. I followed up without ever knowing that the comprehensive plan guy was going to come and talk. And that was really the crux of what I wanted to talk about, was urban planning. The arising of the issue in Newington has made me aware of the amount of decisions you as council members are making in terms of the makeup of our town. I know the monetary side of town business is important. There are many decisions that determine the kind and amount of services the town provides to its citizens. But what this issue in Newington, has brought into focus for me is another role that you feel that's just as important as the fiscal responsibility, and that is your rural/urban planning role. And I say rural and urban for a reason. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina. It came into existence in the 1800s. It was a primary and agricultural town when I grew up, mostly tobacco farming. The town was developed or came into existence in the 1800s for two reasons. One, provided a general store for farmers to get stuff that they couldn't get or grow on their property. And second of all, had a train station. And it became the hub and spoke of our little town. Somerville developed the same way. It wasn't agriculture, it was a wood mill. It was timber, right? And so that hub and spoke little rural is how we developed as a town. 100 years later, we're not that anymore, right? The rural nature has faded. Urbanism has crept in. The population is involved in many industries and has created jobs throughout our area. They have to get to those jobs. The roadways and cars have replaced the dirt roads and horses and buggies that used to be used in the 1800s. The land that was used for farming or timber now is used for housing. And so we have quite a different look, and your role, or an important role, just as important as that fiscal, is going to be the urban planning. And so as you get into this comprehensive plan, I hope you'll delve into that, think about it. Think about it. The UDO has caused changes. I think in that when Mayor Collins started that the last time, we didn't get deep enough into what that was going to do to us and how it was going to end up being. And I hope that you will do that this time as we go through the comprehensive plan. Thank you for your time.
Adrian Quist.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Adrian Quist, and I have lived in Somerville since 1965. I'm a firm believer in the Preservation Society, the Historical District, and public safety, and quality of life. And in my opinion, this council should stay more focused on these issues rather than more development. I came here tonight to support the Newington issue, and by good surprise, the Newington neighborhood won that battle by the decision that you council members made. I keep this short. I can tell you a lot more, but I'm going to save it for another time. Thank you for your time.
Ben Huff. Kevin Carroll.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. Thank you for your vote on Newington tonight. You know, it's interesting that some of us as a town made up of a lot of neighborhoods, but it's also the 7th largest town in the state. I mean, that's not something you really want to be. The bigger you get, the more problems you get. You go around, you see all these mega projects and the town model, maybe we need to think about it because it's no longer the pine is sacred. It's the pine trees are being toppled everywhere. The quality of life diminishes as the population grows. When this gentleman got here, I believe the population was 3,000 in 1965. We're now 53,000. And they all seem to be in the Berlin-G going to 26 all the time now. We see them all the time. You know, we talked about Newington early. Newington as a community gave 50 acres to the school district to put 2 schools on. Nobody seems to remember that. And you have a very stable community, and all of a sudden this big apartment complex, which doesn't match anything there, was going to be put there. You don't want to do that to a town. When something's stable, you kind of want to leave them alone. I mean, when your worst call of the year is, you know, a lost cat, that's kind of a good place to have. You know, when your police say, well, we drive by and wave and that's about it, that's a good section of a community. I grew up in a community like that, where everybody watched out for everything, like this little girl who's here tonight, Murphy. You know, we always did that. So, you know, as you get things in front of you, as things go on, always remember that your town council, your role is to do what is for the benefit of Somerville. And if it doesn't fit being the benefit of Somerville, it doesn't matter. You can go somewhere else. And with all these developments, I keep hearing 3 things: Costco, Total Wine, and Trader Joe's. That's all we need. We never have to go to Charleston County again. We can leave all our tax money here. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, the rest that I have, I'll have in Newington. Do you want me to go ahead and call the names? Just, I don't want to skip anybody who's still here.
I'll just do this, Ms. Clark. Does anybody else wish to speak on an item on the agenda that has signed up? I'm seeing no hands.
With that, I do not have any more public comments for items on the agenda. Next is petitions. Petition by Joshua Forsman and Jessica Wagner to annex TMS number 37900000025, located at 510 East Richardson Avenue and totaling approximately 0.25 acres, currently zoned R4 low-density residential in Charleston County, and requested to be zoned GR5 general residential following annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 2. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at its meeting on July 21st, 2025. The Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for approval at its meeting on August 11th, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Under pending bills and resolutions, second and final reading of an ordinance to rezone TMS number 13711070001 located at 401 South Magnolia Street, totaling approximately 0.51 acres and owned by Camellia Cottage SC LLC from GR2 General Residential to GR5 General Residential.
Move to deny.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to deny. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say, you know, we looked at this between first and second reading. I know last time I was pretty adamant that I was going to vote against this last month, and then changed my mind shortly before the meeting, and then throughout the meeting. It was more along the line of voting in favor of this, just to have some more time to get to where we are tonight. I'm not in favor of this annexation, not because I think the property owners have any ill will or any malicious intent of what they're going to do with that property, but more so along what was said tonight as far as rezoning property within the historic district down to a more dense property. So with that, I'd also just like to just ask us to continue to be neighborly in our town. I think that's, I've seen in the last month between this issue and the Newington issue, I've seen a lot that doesn't seem very Somerville-like. And that concerns me more so than apartment buildings coming into Somerville and rezoning properties. But I'll just leave it at that, and thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I'd like to say as well, I heard a lot during public comments that simply not true, not how I feel, not what I've said. If any of my constituents, if you're my constituent in here, and if you have ever called me or emailed me and asked for a meeting with me, and you know I've had you at my home or I've been in your home, and or we've at minimum had lengthy phone conversations or emails, and I have done my best to address whatever those concerns were. And Mr. Pye is no different than any other constituent that ever calls me and asks for help with an issue, because that's what I was elected to do. And if anyone else has an issue, I'm going to meet with them and I'm going to try and solve that issue for them. And when I meet with them, I always ask them, well, what about this? And what about, we have to look at all sides of everything. And, putting off this vote for another month was simply to try and bring a resolution for all parties, for both sides, that everybody could be happy with. But when that's not possible, then I'm going to do what the constituents want me to do, the bulk of the constituents. And it was obvious here, and I explained to Mr. Pye tonight that I would be voting against it because it is obvious that the bulk of my constituents did not want that. And I will always do that. I'll continue to do that, but I would ask that you to meet with me personally and ask how I feel, what I believe, or why I believe or do certain things, and don't necessarily just listen to rumors. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion?
Yes, sir. It seems that on the bright side, we seem to have united at least 2 neighborhoods in our community. But aside from that, and Mr. Pye, while I believe your intentions wholly, I just don't think we want to go down that slippery slope of rezoning.
Absolutely. Any other comments? I'll just say, I want to echo what Councilman Waring said about the essence of Somerville is being good neighbors to each other, being able to discuss matters that you may disagree with and work together in a polite and orderly fashion, a respectful, mutually respectful way. You know, preservation of the historic district is vitally important to the health and well-being of our town, but stewardship also requires investment to keep up with the historic district. And I know I heard several folks who came in from out of town, and I thank you for investing in town and fixing up our treasures. The Pies have also done that as well. And I appreciate that because without your investment in this town, our historic district will crumble and fall. So thank you for that investment. Thank you for being good neighbors. And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Under introduction of bills and resolutions, item A, approval of a resolution committing the town of Somerville to providing a $5,000 local match for a $100,000 Municipal Association of South Carolina Big Idea grant and following its procurement policy when securing services and products with grant funds. The request is from the grants coordinator.
Make a recommendation of approval.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Item B, approval of a resolution for the town to annex TMS number 14400000197, owned by the town of Somerville. The Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for approval at its meeting on August 11th, 2025.
I make a motion, we approve that. I'll second.
All right, motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I can maybe amend Councilman Jackson's motion to lump B, C, D, and E together into one for approval. I think they're all kind of along the same lines.
I'll do that.
All right.
Motion.
If we need to read them, I'll ask. I don't know if we have to read them or not, but
You amended your motion
Yes,
to approve items B, C, D, and E.
correct.
All right. Any discussion on
well,
those?
I guess E is not really in there with that. We would leave E off of that. Yeah,
All right.
B, C, D. Sorry, we took more time doing.
B, C, D. All right. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor for B, C, D approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Item E, first reading of an ordinance to zone TMS number 22100000264, located off of Millhouse Drive and totaling approximately 3.89 acres and owned by Schaefer Properties LLC to LI Light Industrial, and this is in Council District 2. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at its meeting on July 21st, 2025. The Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with recommendation for approval at its meeting on August 11th, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
I'd just like to read into the record for my constituents in Weatherstone exactly what our UDO does state about light industrial. It says the purpose of light industrial is to provide areas for manufacturing, industrial and processing or assembly of a non-nuisance nature. So I wanted to make sure that they knew that I did look into that, and that the light industrial means that the properties that can be conducted wholly within a structure and do not produce smoke, odors, or excessive noise. So I considered that before supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Item F, first reading of an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance of the Town of Somerville, Chapter 13, Administration and Procedures, Section 13.2.3, Town Council, Item B, Appointments, to include Cultural Arts Commission. The Planning Commission will hold a public hearing and make a recommendation at their August 18th, 2025 meeting prior to council's second reading. The Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with recommendation for approval at its meeting on August 11th, 2025.
I'll make a motion. We approve that.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Item G, first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Elections, Section 10-2, Item B, to change the swearing-in date of candidates winning an election to the first Wednesday following certification of said election, and this request was by Councilmember Halter.
Make a motion. We approve that.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
That was easy.
No more lame ducks. Thank you, Councilman Holton.
Very welcome.
Item H, first reading of an ordinance to approve the sale of the remainder of town-owned property known as TMS 13010000069, and the request is by the legal department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve first reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Next, under miscellaneous, discussion and consideration of the Carolina Waste contract. This item was moved to full council at the Finance Committee meeting on August 11th, 2025.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think I might have brought this up at some point. I have a lot of constituents that complain about our trash service. I think we've talked to Carolina Waste. I have not had an opportunity to follow up with the constituents and see if they've seen an improvement in service. I would ask if we have to make a decision on this tonight. If we don't, I would like the opportunity to survey my constituents and see what their service is like with Carolina Waste before we make a determination if we're going to ask for RFQs on that.
Just to bring, I know you missed Monday committee meetings, but the discussion was had that overall service in the areas or for the other districts must be better than yours. Sorry, because we're not hearing as many complaints. And the intent was to negotiate a annual renewal option at a cheaper rate than what would happen if we bid it. I don't see any reason why we can't wait another month to make that determination. As long as we do act on it somewhat soon, because it's a huge lift to do the bidding. And then if we select a new contractor, it will be a substantial time frame for them to get up to speed. So as long as we're good with the timeline, I'm perfectly fine. Council members, y'all good with discussing it next month?
When is that contract up?
Next summer.
Okay.
End of next August.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
All right.
I'll get a survey posted and sent out so we can discuss it next month. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, ma'am.
Item B, per Somerville Special Event Permit Guide, Section 5 related to parking. An appeal of the Parks and Recreation Director's denial of Dreams request to close West Richardson Avenue from Main to Cedar for the Sweet Tea Festival.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to deny that, because if we approve it,
then we also have to do it for the Italian Festival, to run every event. And we just can't be closing our roads that often.
Second.
And,
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilman.
and I believe, Chief of Police was contacted and gave a negative answer to it also.
All right. Any discussion? Any other? All right, all those in favor of denial of the permit request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
For the next public comment section, Hayward Hudson.
Question for you before I speak. Is there going to be a second reading on removal of the old hospital 500 North Main Street from the historic district?
Mr. Hudson, I'll be happy to answer that. That matter will go before the planning commission, and that date escapes me on when that is. That's on Monday. That will be discussed there. After the planning commission, it will come back before this body, probably in September.
Then I will my request to speak tonight, but I would urge council to reconsider their vote to remove the old hospital historic district. Respect.
Thank you, sir.
Peter Gorman.
Mayor, council members, thank you for your vote on 401 South Magnolia. I was going to go into chapter and verse tonight about how difficult it's been for us neighbors to fight to protect our historic district. But I'm not going to do that. In the interest of your call for civility, I will respectfully just say, I wish we could resolve some of these conflicts before they reach council. And if there's a way to do that, we'd be willing to work with you. Thank you.
Tommy Fagan.
I believe Mr. Fagan left.
That's all I have for public comment. Next is executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move we enter into executive session for items A, B, C, and D. That's an awful lot. And I will ask that we invite Mr. Steve Doninger to join us in executive session.
All right, motion and a second to go into executive session for discussion of economic development matter related to proposed location or expansion of business at the Interfor site. Contractual matter related to the listing agent on town-owned property, TMS number 13700000002. Discussion of negotiations incident to a proposed sale of town-owned property, TMS number 137000002, and discussion of employment matter related to the town administrator. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're in executive session.